Hello, and welcome back to the podcast where you are invited for lighthearted conversations about things that matter as you seek to live your most meaningful, beautiful, and joyful life. I'm your host, Dr. Edie Wadsworth, and I hope you enjoy your stay here at the House of Joy. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to House of Joy.
Welcome back.
We are so excited to be here today. We have a great topic, I think, as we head into the holiday season. We are going to be talking about navigating difficult people, challenging relationships, and
this one is a good one. Hold on, I need to fix your mic because you always grab up there and you pull off.
Oh, got it.
You're welcome.
Thank
Anyway,
you. Is it
sorry
close
about
enough?
that. Yeah. No, that's fine.
Okay.
Also,
but go ahead.
Can I just make a disclaimer? As I start a lot of these podcasts when I'm here in Morristown, I went to CrossFit, and I don't usually. And I have exercise-induced asthma, as embarrassing as that is. And we did like a 800-meter run, and I have
then a bunch
worked
of
up
burpees.
like every bit of phlegm inside of me, and I can't stop coughing or feeling like I'm on the verge of a sneeze. So
that's it.
if you hear me just like struggling, that's why.
That's why. Okay, I have the funniest story, you guys. Do
Yeah,
you
she saved this for the podcast.
I saved this. I haven't told them this yet. Do you remember last year, what was the thing that I told everybody during the holidays? You have to get this thing. I love it so much. I use it every morning. My tabletop fire.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Do you remember this, everyone?
Yes.
I got an email from Amazon. They've been recalled for exploding. Stop it.
You can't do this to me.
We really set one on fire kind of recently.
We did kind of, yeah, we had a little trouble with it.
And everyone was either flaming me or on your side, because we talked about this on the podcast last year.
Yes.
And I was like, this just feels like dangerous.
This just feels unsafe.
Feels unsafe. Like, why do we need it on our table?
Why do we need a flame on the table? That thing brought me so much joy last year when I would be having my morning quiet time. I would just light the little fire.
You know what changes that real quick? An in-house explosion.
So
That's
they basically
crazy.
said to throw it away.
Did you?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
But I haven't told Stevie. Stop, you guys. No, I haven't told Stevie.
Well, first, what was happening was she was putting the wrong stuff in there, and the vents were coming out black.
I was putting not very clean burning alcohol in there. So Stevie ordered me the clean burning alcohol.
Breathing in toxins or something.
We were breathing in like literal house fire smoke, I guess. And I just wanted to confess that, because if I told you to buy one, I'm so sorry. Maybe you could burn it outside, or maybe you should just throw it away.
Or here's a really crazy idea: is have a bonfire or
outside.
Use your outside fire.
It still makes me I still don't know if I totally accept
Believe it?
it.
No, you need to. You should. If Amazon is emailing you about this, you should believe them. I would not just assume.
Well, everyone, on to difficult people.
No. I'm not accepting that. No.
Okay, throw away your tabletop fires. It's fine.
Oh my gosh. Also, speaking of difficult people, I was going to ask you this on the podcast too, because I don't know if you know about pop culture things, except I think sometimes you do. But have you heard
Sometimes I do surprise you.
Have you heard about Zach Bryan and what's been going on?
Okay, I have heard a little bit of this, but I mean, I know who he is, and I like a few of his songs, but then I started to hear all this drama about his girlfriend or ex-girlfriend or something. But here's the thing. Here's what will happen to me. I will go, okay, look, don't have the bandwidth to take on a whole nother set of somebody's stories. So I just scrolled through. I didn't really.
Okay, well, let me
read
just
it.
tell you this part of it.
Okay.
He offered this girl, who also is like an online figure.
Like influencer
type.
Okay, got it.
His team offered her $12 million to get paid throughout 3 years.
Okay.
For her not to say anything. Sign an NDA.
About them dating, about their life?
His abuse. He was really bad, really horrible.
Wow.
She only has talked about emotional abuse.
Okay.
And she basically was like, I'm not going to spill all of his secrets, but I'll tell you what happened to me.
Yeah.
And she didn't take it. And so she has been like sharing
Outing him.
I mean, not even really that bad. I feel like she could have gone way worse.
Well,
But $12 million.
to not talk. Wow. Well, this is a very good transition into something that I want to say about this podcast. What we are talking about here when we talk about challenging relationships or difficult people, we are talking about relationships to people you love that you want to keep having relationships with. I realize that there are relationships that you might decide, like, look, I don't want to have a relationship with this person anymore. And that is probably a topic for a different podcast.
Yes, I think
What we're
that
gonna
goes
talk
into
about-
something else.
Yes.
But yeah, if you have abusive people in your life or they have wronged you in a way that you don't want to be around them, don't be around them.
Yeah, so what we're saying today, don't use it to like be mean to yourself. We're talking about relationships that kind of drive you crazy or feel challenging, but you know you want to stay in the relationship. You love the person. I think this podcast could really help you with that. If it is like you need to draw a boundary or you need to, not be in relationship with this person, this podcast is not about that.
Yes. And I think everyone to some degree, and it doesn't have to be super dramatic, has people in their life that they do love that are yet still difficult to sometimes understand, deal with. And I think around the holidays, it can come up a lot more for people who
Yes.
don't see their family members often, or it doesn't even have to be family members. I think it's just timely because of the holidays, but
Yeah.
you want to be around them and you want to enjoy it the best you can, but
Yeah.
you feel like these people do actual things that make you
That drive you crazy
that drive you
or
crazy and change how you feel about them.
And especially right now, because we're coming off a very divisive election, which brings me to this quote that I want to start with from C.S. Lewis from a book called The Screwtape Letters. Have you ever read The Screwtape Letters?
No,
It's a really good book. And it's from the perspective of like the devil and the demons talking about how to have the most influence on the humans that they're trying to influence. So it's kind of like from the perspective of
the
evil,
evil.
like here's how to influence the humans the most. And I've seen people sharing this in the last, week or so, but it's a great book if you haven't read the book. And it's about a lot more than this quote, but I want to read it. It says, so this is the superior, they call him Uncle Screwtape, sharing this with his nephew of how to keep the evil people, or keep the people, where you want them, if you want them not to be pursuing goodness and virtue and all that. Be sure the patient remains completely fixated on politics, arguments, political gossip, and obsessing on the faults of people they have never met serves as an excellent distraction from advancing in personal virtue, character, and the things the patient can control. Make sure to keep the patient in a constant state of angst, frustration, and general disdain toward the rest of the human race in order to avoid any kind of charity or inner peace that might develop in him. Ensure the patient continues to believe that the problem is out there in the broken system rather than recognizing that there is a problem with himself. I mean, can we give C.S. Lewis his props?
Yeah, he's a very, very wise man.
A man before his time who was so wise. I love
It always
that.
reminds me too of, you quoted this also from C.S. Lewis, I think, a couple months ago,
Yeah,
maybe,
he's definitely my favorite mentor. Yes.
about if the atomic bomb finds you,
Yes.
let it find you
Let it
doing
find you
normal
doing
human
normal human things.
things
Yes.
and focusing on what you can control.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that. I really love that quote.
Yeah, and like I can get sucked into it too. We won't go into the whole story, but the night before the election, I took my dear Aunt Glenda out to dinner, and it was hilarious, the discussions that she wanted to have, regarding the whole thing. It was just funny. She's funny. And so, it's, you want to be, you want to participate, you want to vote, you want to do all that. But also, do we get so fixated on it and so wanting to put people in categories that then it makes it hard for us just to relate to people on just a human level. So that's one, thing that I think we all could go maybe into the holiday season kind of going, let me not like think about relating to them in that way, but just think about relating to this person
in a human way.
In a human way, not based on some way that they've labeled themselves or that we like to label them, but just as the human that God made. Second thing that I think can be helpful is to remember this is a human that God made, that he loves, that he died to redeem, that he is his beloved. That one thing right there helps me so much. Like, this is one of his beloved. And the people that we interact with, bearing his image are precious to him and to a lot of people. And so I think that can be helpful too. The third thing that, and this is kind of where, because this is where I feel like my main skills around this have come in helpful for me, is that when you label someone as challenging and when you persistently keep thinking over and over and focusing on they're really difficult and you have this story about them, and listen, you could have a lot of evidence for how the story is true. But one of the things that you have to ask yourself is, do I like how I feel when I continually focus on that?
Yeah.
Because the thing about the difficult person or the challenging person or whatever, however, our brains like to create the story, is that the feelings that we get when we continually focus on those things about someone, the hardest parts of them, the challenging parts of them, is that we feel bad.
Yeah.
We don't like how we feel inside.
Yeah.
And we can easily blame it on them and say, well, they're just hard to get along with or they're whatever. But we are always in charge of our own experience of life and our own experience even of other people. You get to decide, am I going to take on, say they're saying something to you that is negative or that, feels triggering to you. You have the power to respond to that in a way that feels good for you.
Yeah, I think practically, because I even just think of my own experience, when you can feel it when you are thinking negatively about someone you're around. You can feel, now you're starting to see everything they do, you're pulling out a negative thing so that it proves that you're right. And I think it's hard when you're in that cycle, like especially, let's say people are going home for the holidays and you really only get a small portion of time with these people.
Yeah.
How can you, what's something you can do to switch that mindset in a moment when it feels like everything they're doing is true?
Yeah. Well, one of the things is just the awareness around it. And I love to make I like to make a separation between, instead of saying this person is this way, I like to say, oh, my brain loves to focus on this about this person. Oh, my brain is really picking up on.
Yeah.
You like create a separation instead of sort of labeling the person as something like, oh, I noticed that my brain loves to focus on that. And do I want to keep doing that? Do I like the experience that I'm having of this person when I keep focusing on that
all
or
of
noticing
those
that
things.
or whatever. And I think that can be really helpful in the moment, like just awareness around it. Plus, I think if you know that you're going into a situation where it's going to be difficult like that, I like to make a plan beforehand. Like, okay,
if I start to feel this way,
or I start to feel like I often notice that when I'm with this person, my brain goes on overdrive. My brain's on fire, finding everything wrong, listening for everything they say that might offend me, that might, or whatever. And like, I love the thought of, can I make myself so resilient? Can I have higher expectations of myself? Like, okay, self, we're going to go into this situation that's going to feel difficult.
And I'm going to be able to.
And I am going to work on this for me.
Yes.
Because I don't love the way I feel. So for my own peace and for my own, like kind of like C.S. Lewis was saying, you know, like for my own inner peace, for my own experience that I want to have that day, here's how I'm going to redirect my brain. Maybe I'm going to take a time out and go out for a quick walk or, you know, like give yourself, like treat yourself well in that situation. But also it's just fun for me to look at it as like, I really do think this is true. Our hardest relationships are our best teachers.
Yeah.
And I want to learn the lessons.
Yeah.
Like whatever you have for me here, I really want to learn it.
Yeah. I think it's interesting too, because especially just, I think when you have social media, a lot of people share the same experiences. And so then once you know that a lot of people share that, especially feeling of like, going for the home for the holidays is really hard, and you know other people feel that way, I do think sometimes it can lead you to, when you go into situations like that, it's so not, like, it's not the normal thing to do to prepare yourself for that. It's just to accept that that's how it's going to be.
Yeah.
Like, oh, well, everyone feels this way. It's really hard to be with certain people, and I wouldn't choose to really be with them, or whatever it is. It's really known now. I can't think of the exact word I'm trying to think of, but like, it's universal, I feel like, to just accept that, oh, I'm just going to go and it's going to suck and I'm just going to have to hold my tongue. And yeah, you go into it with that negative mindset already, instead of, it's just not taught. Like, hey,
no,
you can go in before that, knowing, you might know that it's going to be that way, but you can go in before that and decide how you want to experience that day.
Because what we often do, which is kind of what you were alluding to, Em, is if we don't decide on purpose how we want to show up, then we just react. So we either react by completely being passive aggressive toward them, by arguing with them, fighting with them, by people pleasing them and just saying what we think they want to hear, just to, you know, like we have all of these ways that we respond, and then we don't like how.
Well, and it builds that resistance even more.
Yes.
And I saw some TikTok of these people, and they were like, I'm already planning like what I'm gonna, like how bad this Thanksgiving is gonna be.
Right.
And I can't wait to like tell my friends what my uncle says this year or something.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And it's
where
like,
you're planning for a totally negative experience for yourself.
And not that it's not true that you don't agree with people in your family, or that it's not true that you feel like someone in your family is like a certain way. It doesn't make that not true.
No, but also you have to ask yourself, like, can I make myself emotionally strong, emotionally resilient, emotionally intelligent, so that I recognize when I'm being drawn into something where I'm like my highest self, that's not how I want to show up. I really do want to show up for my own self. Yeah. In love and acceptance and understanding and I think curiosity.
Like, doing that in the moment, like, it's really easy to say you're going to do that before. Yeah. And I think it does take a lot of strength and practice. Yeah. To do it in a moment where you feel like your emotions are coming up and you feel attacked or you feel this or that. It's a lot harder to put this into practice.
Right. But this is what I'm saying, though. Give yourself time. Like, if you notice that you get triggered or you have a response, you get really activated, then give yourself a minute to take care of yourself. Like, emotionally regulate yourself.
But I think a great way to practice this, like, is you're not just going to come up upon people who you don't feel like you agree with or love every day. Like, that's going to happen every day. Yeah. And probably against your will sometimes. Like, I think it's a cool thing that you can practice in your real life. So that when you get into these situations that
Yeah.
you have to be in,
Yes.
it feels a lot more second nature.
Yeah, it feels like a skill that like, oh,
I've been building this.
I've been building this skill. I'm getting stronger in this area. And I think what you will notice is that so much of your own angst around it comes from the way you're thinking about this person and the way it's so easy for our brains to focus on what's wrong. It's so much easier for our brains to complain than to process the emotion and just stay in our true selves. It's so much easier for our brains to blame, and I have loved working on this because it literally feels like I can think of very specific examples where I worked on this for months. Even one example, I worked on my relationship with this person for a solid year without the other person knowing,
Yeah.
because I knew I want a relationship with this person. I want to enjoy the time together, and this is my work to do. And when you take responsibility for that and you decide to work on it and you decide to really start thinking in a way that has you loving them, being more curious about them, being more accepting, then it will feel like a miracle. I can remember the time when I was like, oh my gosh, I kept thinking, my experience of this person is so different. Have they changed?
Yeah, they must have changed.
They must have changed. And then I ask somebody else related to the situation and they're like, I don't think so. And I'm
Yeah.
like, that's crazy because my experience of them is so different now.
So different, yeah.
I really, truly learned to love being around them and found all of these amazing qualities that I really genuinely enjoyed.
Yeah.
And then the parts that had really bothered me before seemed so diminished.
Yeah.
And I just think that is possible even if you're telling yourself, well, you don't understand, my relationship with this person, just try it.
Well, and also ask yourself, I think, like, if you feel defensive over your certain relationships or this brings up where you're like, well, you don't understand.
Yeah.
I think ask yourself, okay, what are my intentions with this person?
Yeah.
What do I want out of this in 5 years? What do I want this to look like? I think in some instances, maybe if you don't want a relationship, then there you go. I mean, but if you want the connection with these people,
Yeah.
think about that. Think about the highest potential that it could have. Think about the intention behind it. Well, go in with that intention.
Yes.
And
I'm even asking myself a lot of times, like, okay, it's kind of like a prayer. Like, okay, God, what do you have for me here? I know that there's some gold here. I know there's wisdom here. I know there's something for me to gain and learn here. And I'm open to it. It feels hard, but I'm really open to it. And so show me something that I haven't seen before.
yeah.
Or whatever. I just think if you're open to doing that, it can cause such a dramatic shift in you where you won't even know if they really changed or if you have become so strong and resilient that it no longer feels like it has an effect on you. You have an effect on it.
Yes. And it's like really cool that you get to the place in your life after practicing this that it literally doesn't matter what people do. You still are your true self.
You can stay in your how
don't
you want to show
change.
up. Yes.
You show up the same.
Yes.
And the cool thing about it too is like people seeing you live in your truth like that, whether they admit it or not, is inspiring.
Yes.
Like, I bet your family members know that they have different views as you. I bet they know that. And guess what? Like, how cool would it be, or whatever the situation is,
Yeah.
how cool would it be to them to realize, like, oh, they just show up the same no matter who they're around, no matter who they're with. They are themselves.
Yeah.
I think that's inspiring to other people to
Yeah.
maybe.
And instead of like what I think is really powerful too is if you flip the script, instead of saying, well, that person's not very likable or that person's not very lovable, like putting it on them.
Yeah.
What's my ability
Yes.
to like them, love them? And, because I can't change them. but I can work on me. And do I have an ability to create love in challenging situations? What's my ability to love? Not how lovable are they,
Yeah.
but what's my ability to love? Because it's easy to love someone who's easy to love, right?
Or someone
like, that's
who-
not hard.
Yeah.
Or
it's
someone
easy
who's
to
easy
love
to get along with. Yeah.
people who are also really similar to you.
Yes.
Like, it's easy to find the things you love in them because it's probably things that you would look for in yourself.
Yeah, and I think there's a reason why Jesus said, love your enemies.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's such a simple statement with such a profound
Yeah.
effect on your life if you ever
Because
could really
they
take
can't-
it seriously
they
and
can't
learn.
really affect
do it.
you.
They can't affect you nearly like you've given them credit for. And what's your growth here? How can you expand your ability to stay in your true self, to stay in a place of love and curiosity and compassion where you're really enjoying yourself and you just let the people do what they do? You can kind of get to a point where you can see the humor in it, or you can see the quirkiness in it.
Yeah.
You can appreciate, like,
Yeah.
it becomes like less frustrating, and you can just appreciate how quirky it is. Or I don't know, I've just seen this so profoundly change the way I experience other people that I genuinely was like, have been like, oh my gosh, I can't believe how tender now I feel towards this person, how much I see their good qualities, how much I can appreciate.
Yeah, I mean,
them.
even think about this. Like, I get reminded about this when I'm around a person that I don't particularly like. But when I'm in a bad mood, even coming here, like when I'm in a negative headspace around even my favorite people who I respect to the utmost, I can still find
Yeah, you can get
negative
annoyed.
things
Yeah.
and be annoyed and
Yeah.
be offended
Yes.
by people I love
Love.
and respect and want to be around.
Yes.
And I can still find those things in those people. So, of course, you can find negative things about people who you might not always respect
Yeah.
or you might not always agree with. Of course, you can find
Yes.
things wrong.
Yeah, that's such a good analogy because, or such a good way to think about it, because think about how much power you have over that depending on what you're bringing to the situation,
to it.
your mood, you're bringing so much of that.
Your experience, it's true. Like, I just think about, my experience of even my best friends when I'm having a bad day. Like, it doesn't matter what
they're doing.
It literally
You're just
doesn't
annoyed.
matter. I'm
Yeah.
annoyed. I'm gonna go in here, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, it is true, and you can try to talk yourself out of it and blame others, but your body knows the truth. Your body knows
Yes.
that you're creating that, and the more that you try to get away from that, the more you will create of that, because you need to make it true, because your
Yes.
body knows it's not.
Yes.
And yeah,
And I think also, again, when you find yourself in a situation where it's like, I know when I was working on it, I would go in and I would feel like, okay, this is my chance to work on it. And then literally 1 minute in, I feel anxious and
you're like, I can't
I'm
do
like,
it.
this
But they're
person's
doing
so
the same
terrible.
thing.
Yeah. And then I would give myself, I would have grace for myself. Okay, let me take a walk. Let me breathe. Let me, get myself back together. But it's interesting because so much of it says a lot more about you than it says about them. And that's what I was always asking myself, especially as I was healing from my own trauma. There's something about this person, likely, that is interacting with my trauma, with my wounded self that's not healed. And where do I still need to give some attention there so that I'm not expecting other people.
Yeah, we talked about this yesterday a little bit, and it's not your responsibility to figure out why someone is acting
The way they're
way they
acting.
are. It's not your responsibility, but I do think it sometimes can give you a little bit of freedom
Yes.
to recognize someone else's humanness and where they're coming from in the way that they're acting. Like,
Yeah.
just the same way our trauma and our things that we carry with us
Yeah.
impact how we treat others.
Yeah.
The same goes for another human being. They're probably acting that way
Yeah.
because of something that they have agreed with themselves in their
Yes.
worst form, if that makes sense. And
Mhm.
it's definitely not our responsibility all the time to figure that out for other people.
Yeah.
But I think having a soft heart to know that most people are not evil. Most people, especially just in these like light situations, of course there are people who do evil things, and that is different.
We made the disclaimer of that, yes.
But I do think like most people are not doing things intentionally. Most people don't realize they're doing those things or acting that way or talking that way. And yeah, think about the times how you snap with someone in a moment of your own negativity. You didn't do that to them on purpose. And sometimes you don't even realize you're being that way.
Yeah.
Like, I just think it's important to hold softness and
Yes.
towards people you want a relationship with. Try to assume that they're not doing things to you on purpose.
Yeah. And I think, again, like distancing they're this way, or kind of distancing yourself from making statements about them to like, oh, my brain loves to keep focusing on this.
Yeah.
And then you can kind of create a little bit of separation, like, oh, it makes you feel like, oh, there's a choice here on what I'm focusing on, because most of the time it doesn't feel like a choice. It feels like, no, this person just is this way, and that's why I'm having such a miserable experience, instead of like, oh, it's so interesting how as soon as I'm around this person, my brain is on fire and wants to find everything wrong and wants to, you know, it will give you a little bit of space there so that you can find a way to create what you really want to create in that situation. And I just think it can be so helpful, because there's really nothing more important to people. You know, they do these studies all the time at the end of life. What are people talking about? It's always relationships. It's always, I wish I had
Did
this.
this.
I wish I was closer
I'd
to my
connected
kids. I wish
more.
I connected more. And so now is the time when we get to do that. And to me, it feels like such a worthwhile challenge for myself sometimes. Like, you know, am I up for the challenge to really stay in my own, for lack of a better word, power, instead of feeling like I'm always at the effect of what other people say or other people think, or now I'm having a bad day because she did this. And it doesn't mean that you don't care at all, that you're not human. Of course you do. But I think you can drastically improve your relationships by practicing this.
Yeah.
And, you know, I have said often that the quality of your relationships can never be better than the quality of your thoughts about those people. So your experience of someone is directly correlated to what you think about them and how you think about them and what you focus on about them. And so if you want to improve that and create more fulfilling and enriching and full relationships, then it's so worthwhile to practice doing it, like you said, even though it can feel really hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
I mean, it's something I'm continuing to practice every day. And guess what? Life gives you a million different
many
little
chances.
ways to practice this, because like I said, it really doesn't even matter who it is or what it is
Yeah.
most of the time,
Yep.
because it's really our own responsibility
Yep.
for ourselves. But yeah, life be putting that right up in your face every day.
Especially as the holidays come, everyone.
It's funny because we were filming a TikTok yesterday, and you feel like the way that you are is just like, I don't know, like seeing a lens of how I can sometimes, I don't know, I felt like I could see myself being like a snippy a little bit, and I didn't even notice that.
Okay.
And like seeing it from a point of view that's of yourself, it's like, oh, that's not how I want to act.
be.
That's
Yeah.
not how I want to be, and that's
Yeah.
not how I feel inside.
Yes.
And sometimes taking like a view of yourself from like a outward point of view,
Yes.
like, is that how you want to act? Like, is that how you want to be?
Yep.
And yeah, I don't know. I just think like it's not always just inevitable for you to be a certain way.
And I would say, here's my challenge to us all. Take it a step further and be proactive with this person, because probably all of us, as soon as we even announce the title of the podcast, somebody comes to mind.
Yep.
I mean, for years, if I ever heard anything like this, I would have 2 specific people come to mind. Now, I don't really have anybody that comes to mind, but that's because I've spent 10 years like really working on it and, you know, doing a lot of healing work. But if you think about like for you, who comes to mind, ask yourself, how could I be proactive with this person? And whatever that might look like going out of your way to say something loving and kind, noticing like, oh my gosh, I love your, you're wearing your hair, or I love your whatever, or sending them a text before you get there. I'm looking so forward to seeing you. It's almost like, and C.S. Lewis again says this all the time, if you don't feel loving toward your neighbor, act as if you love him. And soon you will come to love him.
Yeah.
And so how could we even challenge ourselves a step further to really go in going, no, I'm going to create something really special here.
Yep.
In this relationship,
and I'm going to be the one to do it.
And I'm going to be the one to do it because, of course, I am. That's the other thing people often say. Why do I always have to be the one? I used to say that all the time.
Oh, and I think it's a very, very popular theme that is pushed on people a lot.
Yeah.
Like, you shouldn't have to be the one to do anything. It's on them.
Yes.
And I just think that feels suffocating.
I want to flip it. I want to go, no, let me be the one. I'm the one. Of course I'm the one.
Yeah. And guess what? You also get to be the one who sets boundaries. So if you know that you can't, then don't. But you also can.
Yeah.
And you have every power in yourself to do it.
This is going to be fun, y'all. I can't wait to hear your stories of how you're practicing this and how you're setting yourself up to really enjoy your experience with people that might have felt challenging for you in the past.
I totally believe that you're going to have a different experience this time.
Let us know. All right. Well, that was fun. Do we have any 3 special things we're going to talk about today, Emily?
Well, I have one.
Tell me about it.
So you actually bought it. It was like a couple months ago, maybe.
All right.
I'm not going to say the specific purpose because it's a gift for somebody, but
okay.
You had bought on Etsy. It was like a box that had a pattern for a crocheted blanket.
That's right. Yes.
And it came with every color that you need in the pattern and every like how much exactly you'll need and the crochet needle that you need.
Okay.
And the pattern. So it literally had like all in one, and we'll link it. I guess I'll get the link from you. But I just thought it was so helpful because sometimes that's the hardest part of starting a project, especially with knitting or crocheting, is like you got to go and you got to find all these specific things and you got to find
to gather your materials
is so hard.
These people who are putting together these boxes like this
it's so nice.
So nice.
And yarn is also expensive. I don't know how much that was.
I mean, it wasn't cheap, but it's
like it's all there and you get to buy it at once and you don't have to be halfway through your project and need more yarn and have to order more. It's literally all there. It's all ready for you. And it's given me this motivation to finish it because it's all I already have it all.
Yeah.
Because you know when you're not going from a specific pattern or you used a different yarn and like you'll get done and you're like realize you need more.
Yes.
You kind of
it's easy to stop right there.
Motivation.
You're like, now I have to go get more yarn. Yeah.
Yeah. And especially when they ask for a specific yarn, I just thought it was genius, and I've never ordered a box like that had everything in it, and I'm really enjoying it. So
love it so much. I have to tell you, I haven't showed you these yet, but I was shopping with Aunt Glenda. You guys, she's 85. She was so excited in Target last week when we went.
Me too.
By the way, she made me eat Captain D's, which I don't think I've had in 25 years, and I'm still not well from it. But anyways, we went to Target, and she ran circles around me. I'm like, listen, you go shop. I'll just stand right here and wait for you. But we went into the shoe section. They have these little holiday type, I don't know if you would call them kitten heel, probably pumps.
Did you get them?
Yes.
Oh.
They're red. I mean,
Okay.
I'm obsessed with all of my tomato red stuff this year. I mean, literally forever I have loved tomato red, and these aren't really tomato red. They're more like Christmas red. But they have the most gorgeous large bow on the end of the toe.
Okay.
Have you seen these
No,
at
no.
Target? Okay. They have gold.
I'm scared a little bit.
They have black.
One thing I like don't ever really want on any article of clothing is like a huge bow. And by the way, I never told you this, but I have this like sensory issue and I've had it since I was little. Like
You have
if
always
things
been very
are
sensory.
feeling like if it's itchy, if it's restrictive, if it's just sometimes it doesn't even have to be any of those things. It just isn't what I want.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this sweater is doing it for me right now. I feel like I need to claw it off, and like after this episode, I am gonna go and like rip it off of myself. But
Okay.
you were wearing in your episode with Jeannie that like tied
Giant
bow.
bow.
That was giving me secondhand like
Anxiety.
I couldn't breathe watching it. With the necklaces on top of the bow and the collared shirt. I mean, I was like having a panic attack just looking at it on you. And I just had to let you know that like there will never be a world.
in which I will layer a bow on top of 3 necklaces.
Oh my gosh, if there was a bow around my neck right now,
Oh, 7.
7
whatever.
necklaces, a bow, a collar. I can barely wear a collared shirt.
That is
I'm like getting hot thinking about it,
so
but
hilarious. I never go back and listen to our podcast, but I came upon the podcast. It popped up on my YouTube page with me and Jeannie, and I listened to a little bit of it. I'm like, oh, it was so sweet. So if you haven't listened to the podcast that I did with my BFF, Jeannie
yeah,
Jett.
it was such a fun episode. I feel like
Go
we've
listen to
never
it.
had. I just don't know if people know all of the lore of like our old neighborhood and our old lifestyle and just all of the things. And really, she's stuck with you that whole time.
We have been through some stuff. 20
Yeah.
years.
Yeah,
of
like those
adventures
parties and
together.
everything. It was just a fun listen. And yeah, y'all should definitely go listen to it if you haven't already. It's really
Yeah,
fun.
It's so fun. Do we have a third?
I can't think
I
of
will say
anything.
this, and maybe Katie, you could put this in the show notes. I am full on in soup season. We had this talk yesterday.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
About soup, and Emmy's like, yeah, I mean, I like soup, but then I feel like I'm hungry. You know, after that, I'm like, oh, not me. Like, give me a bowl of soup for every meal from here until March. That literally is the way I feel. And we have how what would you say, curated, or is it just all on one page, Katie, on the blog, the old blog? Oh, it's downloadable, you guys. I have a downloadable soup
PDF type thing.
PDF
It's actually
thing
way more fancy than a PDF.
with
It's
my
like,
favorite soups.
it's beautiful.
So we're going to put that in the show notes because it is soup season. It is here. If you have not made my Chipotle pumpkin soup,
Katie
I
was
made
like
it
really
2 weeks
questioning that
ago.
one. I was like, it's good, I think.
it is so good, Katie. I should have made that while you guys were here, but I didn't. I did make the girls' pumpkin muffins though. But
Oh, I know another favorite thing I have.
tell me.
I haven't even finished it yet, but I'm so intrigued by it already.
Okay.
Is the Martha documentary, Martha Stewart's
I
documentary.
haven't watched it yet.
It's
Tanner
so
said
good.
it's amazing.
She is literally hilarious. Like,
Okay.
her personality is not what you would think. I mean, I think a lot of people who grew up with
With
her
her.
probably know that, but I didn't realize how funny she is.
Yeah.
She was like, apparently on one of like the press for it, she was like, here's some notes I had about the editing. I didn't want that like musical music. She wanted like hard rap in the background of it instead. And that
She is
she
so
asked,
savage.
she was like, no, I wanted that. I'm not this like, they had like instrumental, like
For
sweet
as much
music.
as she does like house stuff, she's very masculine in a way. Like
No,
her
she
energy
is. She worked on Wall Street. Did you know that?
Yeah.
I was shocked. Anyway, it is so interesting and so good, and I am obsessed with
Well,
her
Tanner
now.
was telling me about watching it, and I said, Tanner, she was my hero for years. Like when I first started getting into homemaking,
Oh,
which
I
had
remember.
it.
I
Do you
remember the Martha Stewart era. Doesn't she have like a whole
She had a whole line.
line?
She
Yeah.
ended up having a whole line of stuff at Kmart, which is a weird partnership, but it was great stuff.
Well, that was another thing I think she talks about in there.
She does.
I can't remember if this was during press or during the thing, but they didn't want her to do it, I don't think. And they were like, she was like, no, I want this to be accessible for people.
Well, let me tell you, in my little tiny town, we had a Kmart. We still don't have a Target. We had a Kmart. And when her Christmas line came out at Kmart, that was near the year where I did the Christmas tour
Yes.
for the charity thing. And I was in love with everything in there. I wish, listen, if you could give me a Martha Stewart line and resurrect our Kmart, I would take it right now.
She
It
was
so cute.
ahead of her time. Like,
Yeah, she was.
it was really
And let me just say
impressive.
this because this will be released before Thanksgiving, is that my favorite Martha Stewart memory is she had a magazine that came out. It was a Thanksgiving magazine that came out, I don't know, a few weeks before Thanksgiving. And she showed you how to, with your two bare hands, not only make all the food, and I made a lot of her recipes over the years. Not only the food, that's where I got the Parker House roll.
Yep.
Years ago. I've been
Those
making
are
Parker House
still
rolls for
so
25
fire.
years.
Butt
They're
bread?
so good. But well, yeah, my own homemade Martha version of it. But she had in that magazine all these templates where you could construct the Mayflower.
Oh my gosh, I know exactly what you're
Do
talking
you remember
about.
this with your two bare hands?
Oh my gosh. Yes.
I made the
Do we have a
Mayflower.
picture of that?
I don't think so. I think we lost it in the fire, but I
Oh
made
my
these
gosh.
headdresses for the kids so that we could do the
I
pilgrim dinner.
know what you're
And
I can feel this in
constructed.
my
I
head.
stayed up all night long that night, the night before Thanksgiving. I stayed up all night long. I made the Mayflower. I made all of the food. I remember standing on top. I was covered in flour all night long. I stayed up all night long. And when my family got to my house, and there was a lot going on in my personal life, but I had worked so hard.
No way. I mean, you stayed up all night. I think it's
I
clear.
stayed up all night and made the Mayflower and made all of these homemade dishes. And as soon as they came to the door, I opened the door and I started sobbing.
You're like, I can't actually handle this. No, that's iconic.
It was iconic.
There's always something going on if you are doing that kind of level. Like that's a sure sign that something is happening. Something
If
is
you're up in the middle of the night
Constructing headbands for
headbands
your
and the
Thanksgiving gift.
Mayflower boat with your two hands while listening to Counting Crows,
something's
you might
off.
need some help.
Maybe therapy. Yeah.
Yes, it was. This was pre-finding therapy or coaching.
Yeah.
So it was my
anyway,
own therapy.
That's
Thank you,
awesome.
Martha.
No, literally.
So go
that
watch the Martha documentary.
It actually was inspiring. I was like, okay, I need to like get doing something in my rental home because
What am I doing
What am
with
I
my life?
doing? Like, I need to make this more aesthetically pleasing and kind of like old century European. She's just talking about like all of her travels and how they like inspired her decorating and all this stuff. I mean, it was just
I do
so
have
good.
a bone to pick with her though. The island that we
Mm-hmm.
have upstairs, in one of her magazines, she showed in one of her kitchens. I don't know. She has several houses. In one of her kitchens, her island had all open shelving, on the underneath the island. So I showed our builder, the guy who made our cabinets, I showed him the picture of this and said,
Like,
I've
this
never
is what I
seen this
want.
before. I've like never seen an island where all the shelves were open. Can I just tell you, please, if you are listening to this, never, ever, ever do that. It's only a place to collect dust. The cabinets need to have doors on them on your island. Do not have a bunch of
gets
open
flour
shelving.
up in
It's
there.
flour, dust. So I'm like, Martha, I guess she can get away with that because she
Well,
probably has a staff of people that are
I
like,
don't think it
yeah,
really is her
yeah.
business.
Where she's
what's
actually
happening underneath
cooking
her
and yeah.
shelves
So that's my only bone to pick with Martha. I do not love my open shelving
on your island.
on my island. Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Wow.
y'all, that's
That
been
was
fun.
a good one. So glad we went off on that tangent.
That was a tangent. Hope you have a wonderful holiday, and
Yes,
we love you
it's
so
gonna be
much.
amazing. We love you guys. Don't forget that we post these on YouTube every week if you want to come join the fun.
Yes.
feel like you're here with us on the couch, you should definitely watch on YouTube.
If you haven't given us a rating or review, it really helps us. So you can just scroll down, give us a 5-star rating if you feel like you get stuff out of the podcast that's helpful to you, or leave us a written review. We're so thankful when you do that. People tell us all the time that they found us. I just found your podcast when I searched for this and this and this, and that is because of you. And we're so thankful for you and hope you have a great holiday season.
Yes, we love you so much.
Bye.
Bye.